Welcome to Gemini, baby. Hi, hello. I'm your host, Divinity Jen. Thank you so much for joining me for the 60-second episode of my podcast. This is the place where we dive deeply into music, mysticism, pop culture, and so much more. We celebrate the duality of life and the cosmic chaos that comes with it. Hello, my friends. I am so excited for episode 62. In fact, I've been wanting to make one of these episodes since 2023, since I initially launched this podcast. And the fact that it's taken me 3 years to finally do a music industry and astrology episode, I'm just like, you guys, it's been a long time coming, but I think it is actually divine timing because just in a matter of days, we are going to have Uranus enter the sign of Gemini, and we are going to talk so much about that specific transit, it's about that specific ingress, and we're really looking at the outer planets. However, I'm jumping a little bit ahead of myself because before we get into all of those things, I do want to give you guys a little bit of an explanation on how all of this is going to work because this is loaded. In fact, I would say if you are someone in the music industry, whether you are an artist, a music industry exec, someone who is aspiring to get into the music industry, like a fangirl or is a fan of some sort, or for whatever reason, you are just a music fan who has stumbled across my content and you're curious about what this next era in music is going to look like, then hi, hello, thank you so much for being here. But also, get ready, y'all, because I am not holding back. When I say we're going to be talking about music industry and astrology, I am diving deep into my predictions, We're not looking at just 1 month. We're not looking at just 6 months. We're really focusing on what I would say is about 20 years. Some of these planets are in their zodiac signs for 20 years. And a lot of this energy is just going to take time to really come to fruition and for us to see like what actually manifests. And so that is my disclaimer. Please take everything I say with a grain of salt, because while I do have specific predictions, of course, this is all speculation. None of this should be taken as facts. Please be discerning, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Of course, when it comes to personal matters such as legal, financial, mental and emotional issues, please seek resources outside of this. This video is specifically for entertainment purposes only. So let's get into it. However, before we dive too deep, I do want to bring up some very important announcements just to remind you guys of the things that we have going on over here at Gemini Baby. First and foremost, the Patreon is officially live. I have my first 2 posts up and only more to come. If you sign to the Patreon, you get access to a monthly music industry insight, monthly astrological insights, a monthly tarot reading, bonus podcast episodes, behind the scenes, a private Discord. There is honestly just so much. And so if you're interested in supporting me and supporting my work, I highly recommend that you go to geminibaby.com/Patreon, and there you will find the link to sign up for Patreon specifically. The next thing I would like to discuss is my music branding workshop is also live. This is in partnership with the Colorado Music Industry Alliance. It is a branding workshop. It is virtual, it is free, it is global and open to everyone and anyone. So you can sign up on my website, geminibaby.com/workshops. It is on May 6th at 7 p.m. Mountain Time and runs for about an hour and 15. And so if you're able to make it, I highly recommend you do so because that is the only way to access this workshop for free. So you got to be there live. The next thing I'd like to mention is that my astrology readings with Shadow and Shine are also officially live. If you guys are interested in getting an astrology reading with me that is deeper, more intense, we're really looking at the nuances in your chart, and I highly recommend you book a reading with me at shadowandshine.com. I am using Hellenistic astrology techniques, so we're focusing on zodiacal releasing, we're looking at your decans and bounds, and just diving deeper the normal natal chart reading. And lastly, I also want to shout out that I am on YouTube. I'm really trying to grow that platform. So if you are on YouTube, please go to my website, geminibaby.com/links, and you'll find the YouTube. I think my channel is like at Gemini Baby Podcast. And so you'll find my videos there. I am posting a podcast clip there. I am posting like occasional social content. I'm really thinking about my long-term strategy there, but for as of right now, it will live as like the podcast hub as well. So if you are listening and you're not watching on Spotify, then you can find the video version of this podcast on YouTube. Now, let's get back into your music and astrology predictions. To start off this episode, I want to establish the astrological foundation that will support my insights and my predictions about the music industry. First and foremost, we had Pluto, which is the planet of power, transformation, death and rebirth, enter the sign of Aquarius for the first time in spring of 2023. However, it did retrograde back into Capricorn, where it has been since 2008. Capricorn being the sign of hierarchy, systems. It's really like the responsible, the discipline, it's work. And so when you have Pluto, the planet of power, in the sign of systems and hierarchy and work, it really is giving that the power is in those who work hard for it, in those who are of the elite, because Capricorn can deal with like status. Pluto entered Aquarius spring of 2023, retrograded back into Capricorn, and officially moved into Aquarius in the fall of 2024. And so, as I have mentioned in previous Gemini Baby episodes, I like to think of this time period in our life right now as a book. And we are just starting a new book. However, we have been in the prelude since 2023, starting on April 25th, when Uranus officially enters Gemini. I consider this the first line of chapter 1 of this new book. And so the prelude is finally wrapping up, and we are actually reading the book. And so I use this metaphor because I think that's the best way to look at how I'm going to describe how some of these transits are going to unfold. And so with Pluto being in the sign of Aquarius, Aquarius being the humanitarian, the distribution of knowledge, it's the water bearer, it's the eccentric, it's an air sign. So it does deal with that level of intellect. With that Pluto being in the sign of Aquarius, that tells me that primarily the power is with the people. The power is now in knowledge and the distribution of that knowledge. The power is with those who are not afraid to be eccentric, to lean into what makes them quirky and unique. Pluto is not the only planet to move into a new zodiac sign. We also have Neptune officially in Aries. Neptune takes about 14 years to change zodiac signs. It's been in Pisces since 2011. Pisces is actually its home sign. So Pisces is like the mystical, it's the miracles, it's what we don't see clearly, it's boundaryless, but it's also can be deceptions and illusions. We don't see totally clearly with Pisces energy because it's so intuitive. Pisces is the last zodiac sign. And so it's very much of what happens after. It's the unknown. And so with Neptune being there was a lot of uncertainties, but also a lot of fogginess, for lack of better words. But it's like fog that we enjoyed. It's fog that we didn't really even realize was fog. And so when Neptune moves into Aries, a fire sign, the first zodiac signs, we are restarting this cycle with Neptune. And it's basically, okay, we're in this fogginess without even really knowing it's foggy. Now the fogginess is on fire and we're seeing things differently, because with Neptune being in Aries, it's almost this dissolving of what was hidden when Neptune was in Pisces. And so it's coming at the forefront of, our minds and us as individuals, Aries, again, being the first zodiac sign, being the sign of the individual. And so we're finally starting to see things a little bit more clearly about ourselves. However, it's a double-edged sword. Astrology operates on a spectrum. And so while we may be seeing things clearly about ourselves, there's also the potential to not see things clearly. And so there's this push and pull between, are we seeing ourselves clearly or are we not? And so there is this, again, like spiritualness around individuals at this moment. And so Neptune entered Aries officially in January of 2026. It first ingressed into Aries in the spring of 2025. However, again, retrograded back into Pisces, officially re-entered Aries January of 2026. The next planet I would like to talk about is Uranus. And Uranus is a planet of chaos, rebellion, revolution. It has been in the sign of Taurus since 2018, you guys. Literally, all of these planets have been in their zodiac signs for such a long time. I remember what was going on in 2018, and I'm like, oh my God, like astrology is so real. But again, Uranus being the planet of revolution, rebellion, chaos, but it's also like light bulb moments. It's sudden breakthroughs. It's really expect the unexpected. It's unpredictable. When it was in the sign of Taurus, or it still is as I record this, it has been like instability with Taurus themes such as finances, relationships, stability, our values. There's really just so much. And, Uranus doesn't particularly like Taurus. It's almost restricted because it's like, I can't be the wild card energy that I normally am. Well, Uranus is about to enter Gemini, and it first entered Gemini back in early July of 2025, retrograded back into Taurus, and is now officially going to enter Gemini on April 25th of 2026, literally 2 days from when I am recording this, which is so crazy as a Gemini stellium. And Gemini is the sign of the twins. It's a sign of duality. It's a sign of intellect. It's very multifaceted, multi-talented. They're very quick. There is so much to Gemini, and Uranus entering that sign, it actually is going to do so much better there than it was into Taurus. So, there's a ton of innovation on the horizon for us. And so the last planet I would like to mention is Saturn in Aries. And this is also a big one. While Saturn may not be in a zodiac sign for 20 or 14 years, it is in a zodiac sign for about 2 to 3 years. And it's been in Pisces with Neptune since spring of 2023. And so with this combo of Neptune and Saturn, it's like, what's really going on? Because Saturn is a planet of karma, responsibility. Some people look at Saturn as like father energy, where it's like, the stern father comes in and tells you to do your chores. And if you do your chores, you get your allowance. It's almost like that type of energy. But Saturn is also deals with time. And, it's almost like a weight. It can be very weighty to some. And so with it leaving Pisces, where it's like we're carrying the weight of the world without realizing we're carrying the weight of the world, because again, Pisces is still boundaryless. Now that it's in Aries, we're recognizing that the weight of the world is really on us as individuals. And so I say all of this because these outer planetary shifts basically all happened at the same time, minus Pluto and Aquarius, which officially entered Aquarius in fall of 2024. Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus are all changing zodiac signs at the same time. And so this creates a lot of collective shifts, as I'm sure many of you guys can tell just by, opening social media or reading the news or turning on the news. The other planet that I did not mention is Jupiter, and Jupiter takes about 1 year to change zodiac signs. I'm not going to talk too much about Jupiter here in this specific episodes, but just know Jupiter is also going to be changing from Cancer into Leo at the end of June of 2026. So there's a lot going on, you guys. There's a significant amount of changes on the horizon, but it's really important that I establish this foundation because this is going to build off of my music industry prediction. So are you guys ready to get into it? I think we should start off with Pluto and Aquarius. Pluto and Aquarius, aka the power is with the people. This is a significant transit, my friends. This, in my opinion, is weightier than the other planets because Pluto in a zodiac sign for about 20 years, meaning we're only in the beginning stages of a Pluto and Aquarius, and we haven't properly seen how this transit is going to unfold yet. Because of course, when one planet leaves one zodiac sign to the other, there is this shift of energy. And Pluto being the planet of transformation, death, and rebirth, we really are transforming what we have experienced through Capricorn themes and now shifting into Aquarius themes. My first prediction with Pluto and Aquarius is that fandom is everything. The fans now get to choose who is the superstar, who is the number one on the chart. It's no longer up to the labels. Of course, the labels can invest thousands of dollars into one artist, into 20 artists, but at the end of the day, if neither of those artists have a solid, steady, strong, and secure fandom, it's going to be very difficult for them to break through. However, power is primarily with the fandom, with groups of people, but it is also with the artists and with the workers. Because Aquarius is the distribution of knowledge, we are finding out more information about how the inner operations of the music industry works. And, I have to shout out social media, specifically TikTok, because that has been the platform that has been very much the distributor of knowledge for many people and really for connecting communities as well. And so when I say, the power is also with the artists and with the workers, I'm talking about we're shifting away from thinking that the power is with the elite, with the top 1%, with the CEOs, with whoever owns this company and that company. We're starting to recognize that when we come together as individuals, again, and whether it's as artists or as music industry professionals, we really do find that the power is with us, that we get to make the decisions. And the great thing about, I think, fandom in 2026 is fans do recognize this already. If you ever logged on to like Twitter specifically, the fandom wars there are absolutely insane. However, they're not afraid to also call out whoever their idol is. So if artist B does something, artist B better expect their Twitter mentions to blow up with not just, messages from strangers who know nothing about them, but also their fans. People really want their idols to almost take accountability, but also for them to resonate with. And so, the opportunity here is fandoms, they can build you up. The people now get a choice on who is the most famous artist or who's going to be going viral. But the risk here is forced conformity, where the people, the fans, the artists, the music industry professionals do not recognize their power, especially when it comes to collective power. The second prediction I would like to make using Pluto and Aquarius is the eccentric, the quirky ones, they win. Specifically when it comes to musicians. If you are someone who likes to dress up and just, for lack of better word, this is a very old saying, but wave your freak flag, wave the wave the flag, you guys, because the astrology really speaks that the power in Aquarius, or the Pluto being in Aquarius, is the power in the eccentric, because Aquarius is a little bit of the odd one out. They're a little bit different. They're a little bit quirky. And so if you are an indie artist and you are wanting to explore your branding or your identity, I highly encourage you to dive into what makes you different, to dive into what makes you unique. And I know that's cliche. I know that's kind of like a buzz saying in like the music industry right now, but it's true. If you are a singer-songwriter who plays folk music, but your like secret hobby is that you're a hardcore gamer and you're really into Club Penguin I think is over. But like if you're really into Club Penguin, dive into your Club Penguin interest, you guys. Like the ones with the weird niche interests and aren't afraid to make that part of their personality really win, because the people want to niche down. The people want to feel like they identify with the artist that they are connecting with. And so the more that you are authentic and the more that you share with the people, the more they will give back to you. The third prediction I would like to make, which is actually, I think, one of my favorite predictions out of the entire episode, is everyone is a star, quoting 5 Seconds of Summer. But it's true, you guys, everyone is famous now. If you are an artist and you expect your manager or your A&R or your photographer to not have some sort of online presence, I'm sorry, my friend, those days are likely dwindling, because a lot of people are starting to realize that their next opportunity, how they build their business, is through social media content. Doesn't always have to be TikTok, but it's going to be very difficult for businesses to grow without some sort of online presence. So, given the fact that TikTok has changed the influencer game so much, everyone truly is a star. Everyone really is famous. Someone that I think about is Paloma, who is Sabrina Carpenter's best friend. I literally just saw a video of her today walking at Coachella, and these girls started shouting at her and being like, "You look so good, queen." And she just smiled and waved and was very sweet to them. But that's kind of the energy. Like, these pop stars, their best friends are going to become famous, but so are their managers. Fans are now looking at artists and who their team is. And if an artist is doing something that the fandom doesn't like, they're going to call out the team. There's that level of accountability. So while, artists, your teams may not become mainstream famous, people are going to know who you work with. So make sure that you choose people that you truly resonate with and could see yourself building with long term, because if your fans don't like them, trust me, they will let you know. Fandom for this next era truly will build you up or break you down. There's not really much in between. Pluto in Aquarius is really asking the music industry to evaluate their connections and how they collaborate with others. Again, this collaboration is not just artist to artist, music industry exec to artist, or even music industry exec to exec. It really is, how are you collaborating with all systems of the people that you are connecting with? Your fans, your manager, your photographer, your social media team, however that resonates for you. It really is less about detaching and becoming this like untouchable public persona that no one can ever reach, and more so allowing yourself to open up and finding that by being true to who you are and connecting with your audience on a regular basis, you then find the power, because people are over supporting people that they don't know. There's so much going on in the world right now that being transparent and being very authentic is important, because people want to resonate with you. And if you ever get afraid of niching down, which is actually astrology prediction number 4, niche down, my friends. That is so crucial, so important. Niching down is in a way being the eccentric of being different. And when I say niche down, I mean it for a couple of things. First and foremost, genres. Don't just say you make pop music. Are you into hyper pop? Are you like rock? Are you like pop rock? Are you, whatever other pop music there is? I'm like blanking on the names, but find your niche. Truly find your niche, because I think you will be surprised to know that the ceiling is not that high. That maybe in hyperpop, there's like 5 to 10 mainstream artists that are leading the genre, which is actually probably 10 is shooting pretty high. Let's say 5. There's so much window of opportunity, you guys. Like, how many people do you know that are just trying to pursue rap as a career? And that's rap. Imagine if they niche down. I'm not super educated on rap music, but imagine if someone pursued like a niche genre within the rap world and became the face of that genre. Sky's the limit, my friends. It truly is. And Pluto in Aquarius is really asking us to almost allow this knowledge to transform us from the inside out, and to connect with others who are like-hearted and like-minded, because this is not the time where we need to people please. This is not the time where we are trying to appeal to everyone and anyone. This is the time where we are truly trying to find our community and those who resonate with us. I would rather have 100 dedicated fans at a concert than 10,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. Metrics are weird in the music industry, you guys. Numbers don't mean as much as they say they do. Of course, if you're a musician, I understand having a following is really important. Those vanity metrics, such as, Instagram followers, monthly listeners on Spotify, those are important things, but they don't necessarily reflect the value of yourself as an artist, the value of your music, nor the value of what you have built in your artist career. Now, of course, in astrology, there is downsides to everything. And with Pluto in Aquarius specifically, there is the risk of forced conformity, which is basically being forced to do what the elite say. The transformation of the people, which is, the power has control over the people, which, it has for, I think, all of our lives. But it almost becomes like we can't advocate for ourselves. And so this is why it's so important for all of us to come together as individuals, as artists, as industry execs, as people who want to get in the music industry, as fans, because we are so much stronger together than we are separate. The other risk here is just getting lost in the noise of AI, in the noise of the music industry, and listening to more about what other people have to say and not really listening to yourself or your audience. So, for example, artist number 3 could have a very loyal fan base who is being introduced to artist number 4 because they are opening for artist 3 on tour, and artist 3 fandom's like, artist 4 should go in that direction. Here's another risk. Labels and AI will fill the gap if you do not fill it. Again, this is why it's so important for us to show up very authentically, to come together as a collective, because if artists just give up, and we're also talking about fans and music industry professionals, but I want to speak to the artists specifically because this impacts you guys so much and impacts everyone else. If things aren't going well for you, things aren't going well for us. And so labels and AI will take advantage of this energy to implement whatever goals that they have, because they're not thinking about the people. They're thinking about profit. They're thinking about, how can we change society? And even if there is pushback, they're not taking your feedback super seriously. If you don't pursue your dreams, expect an AI robot to pursue your dreams for you, for better or for worse, right? However, here are the opportunities and what you can actually do to help mitigate some of this energy. First and foremost, you got to connect with people, with your fandom, with people in the industry. Really focus on what you want long term. And when I say long term, I think about Aquarius being a fixed sign. In traditional astrology, its ruler is Saturn, not Uranus. And, Saturn deals, as I had mentioned, with responsibility, with commitment. It's timekeeper. Aquarius, that's the people, that's humanity. And so the opportunity here is for you guys to connect with your audience, to connect with industry people, to connect with, aspiring professionals, and start focusing on who you want in your corner. Collaborate with one another and own our power, because once we do that, we will then see that sky really truly is the limit and that the power has always been with us. And the last thing I would like to mention as an opportunity for Pluto and Aquarius specifically is owning your information. Now, this kind of bleeds into like Uranus and Gemini and Saturn and Neptune and Aries. But when I think about the foundation, I think about, again, the power in Aquarius being the distribution of knowledge. So we're being given this information and we're having to use this knowledge. And so are you using it just to listen and give yourself anxiety because you're learning about music business and what you have to do, but you're not executing? Or are you actually now applying the knowledge and allowing this transformation of your own personal power to come, because then you have built a system, you have built a foundation that only really relies on. Now, let's shift into Neptune and Aries, aka everyone's a star. 5 seconds of summer. Everyone is famous with Neptune and Aries. Neptune being the planet of idolization, Aries being the planet of the individual. Everyone is a star, you guys. I know we're specifically talking about music and music industry. However, this also speaks to influencers, you guys. When I say everyone's a star, influencers are very much leading the forefront and showing that this is possible. However, to my musicians, this is your opportunity, you guys, to really pursue your dreams and to create a career for yourself. Specifically, the idolization of the individual comes from those who are not afraid to be risky, who aren't afraid to be bold, who aren't afraid to really show up and again, be authentic, but also to take a risk and show us who they truly are. So much of this next era in music really is about being authentic, really is about connecting with your audience, but more or less, it really is about being you and showing up as yourself. However, I understand that artists want to have personas. And so let's talk about that, because I know I'm going to get questions of, I can't be like a Lady Gaga in 2026. That's not what I'm saying. In fact, Neptune in Aries is the idolization of the individual, but it's also like the lacking clarity of the individual. So if you do want to have a persona such as Lady Gaga, I encourage you to do so. Of course, if you are going to have a character or a persona, just be prepared to, again, make content to connect with your fans, to connect with your industry people. Neptune and Aries doesn't take away from the responsibility as a musician or as an industry exec or aspiring fan. And so shifting into the music industry execs and aspiring fans trying to get into the music industry, this again is also the idolization of you. Because if Aries is the first zodiac sign and Neptune is there in the first zodiac sign, the sign of the individual, again, Everyone is a star. And so if you are an industry exec, I highly recommend you start posting socials, posting your content, start building your business in a way that's going to connect to people that feel like they actually know who you are, what you stand for, what you offer, what your services are. Because more and more artists are going to start looking for team members on their own. And I'm jumping a little bit ahead of myself because there's just so much, you guys, in astrology. But this is the idolization of individuals. And if you're a fan trying to get in the music industry, I actually just saw a fan account a couple of days ago who is like there's a person trying to break in the industry. They don't have a proper job in the industry just yet, but they're making content talking about like fandom and, pop culture. And it's honestly incredible. And that is a great way to start, building your music industry portfolio, to start connecting with others online. Because once you have that foundation for yourself of, I've built my mailing list, I have 10,000 followers on TikTok or whatever, it's really hard to argue that you aren't sustaining yourself because you already had the foundation, right? Something else that Neptune in Aries is also bringing us is this brand new beginning in our sense of self and what we believe is possible. I call this the ultimate Delulu transit, the ultimate chase your dreams transit. Of course, I'm sure there's other astrologers who will be like, you cannot beat the ultimate Delulu of Neptune and Pisces. Of course not. But when it shifts into the energy of the individual, it's like, I can do anything and everything, right? But again, we have to remember that astrology operates on a spectrum. So we can lean from one extreme to the other. Most people tend to fall in between. However, this is not a transit that's saying what you dream of isn't possible. It's saying actually it can happen for you because it's happening for everyone. I wouldn't be surprised if influencers start pursuing music more so than they have now. Again, there is just so much opportunity in the creative space right now because of its lack of regulation, because of how much changes are happening, that people who are pursuing fame or like influence in any sense are likely going to do multiple things. So you're not just like a TikTok influencer or a YouTuber, you're a YouTuber who is now a musician and stars in movies. It's giving that we're doing everything all at once. Again, it's the idolization of the individual. It doesn't really matter what the individual is doing. It's more so of idolizing them. And I think a big reason why this idolization is coming is because of AI. And I'm going to talk about AI a little bit further into the episode. But, Neptune and Aries is also AI. You make aspects with Pluto and Aquarius, Uranus and Gemini, obviously going to conjunct Saturn and Aries. And it's just giving like AI is taking over and people are now obsessed with those who are real, which is crazy. Like, can you imagine that? Just by being a human, you're now being obsessed over. It's kind of crazy. Something else that stands out about Neptune and Aries is the fact that as an individual, we may lack clarity around how to assert ourselves, how to navigate this energy, because Neptune still is coming in to provide some of that fog around ourselves as an individual. And Aries being the first zodiac sign, we just kind of want to execute. We just want to move. We just want to get things going. But Neptune's being like, okay, go ahead. But if you accidentally walk off the edge of the cliff, you accidentally walk off the edge of the cliff, and that's not on me, that's on you. Yes, you were staring at the rainbow on the other side of the cliff, but you didn't even care to look down to see what you're actually walking into. And I actually think that's the perfect way to describe Neptune and Aries. And so pursue your dreams, take risks, but just make sure you're being practical with this energy because again, Neptune can be idolization, but it can also just be deceit and not seeing things clearly. So tame the impulses, my friends. Make sure you're being grounded and very practical in what you do. No one should be leaving their job overnight based on this video. Have some sort of game plan. Even if you don't have savings, have a game plan of what this exit strategy is going to look like because there is a risk for Neptune and Saturn and Aries for individuals just to act and to do things without thinking. And we've already had this Aries stellium happen. We just had the new moon in Aries last week. And, I've already done things where I'm like, wait, I wish I did that, or I wish I didn't turn in that direction, or wait, I wish I ordered that drink, or, I wish I said this thing differently on the podcast and then getting frustrated about it because it is Aries. So just be mindful of, again, everything operates on a spectrum and we have to really find the in between. Next, we really need to have strong boundaries with Neptune and Aries. Given that it's the idolization of the individual, there is a strong risk and likelihood of parasocial relationships, parasocial connections really coming to the forefront. Because when we give Pluto and Aquarius the power into the group, the collective humanitarian to the people, when we give power to the people, and then it makes a sextile to Neptune and Aries, it's just giving like the community, the people are supporting you, and there's this idolization of the individual. But it's like because we have to be so authentic with that Aries and Aquarius energy now, people are connecting with us, but they're forming these parasocial relationships. And that parasocialness is really shown with that Neptune and Aries. Neptune being the parasocial, Aries being of, of ourselves. So strong boundaries are key, and having a strong sense of yourself is also super important because Neptune is going to come in and make you second guess things. And it's important as an artist or even as a music industry exec to not get pulled into too many directions over here, because that is a risk with all of the Uranus and Gemini, Pluto and Aquarius, because all these planets make aspects to each other. And that's something I should have called out at the beginning of the episode, is when all these planets make aspects to each other, meaning, they are on top of each other or they're opposite of each other in different zodiac signs. It's too much technical detail to get into this episode, but all of these planets are going to be making contact with each other, especially as they first initially ingress into these new zodiac signs. And so things just change very fast because the planets are doing so much. It is reflected in what's going on with the collective. So again, make sure you have a strong sense of self, because people will pull you into one direction when you really want to go in the opposite. People will blur the lines between boundaries and parasocialness. People will idolize you, but also be very deceiving. But again, you can push through the fog. Just don't make any reckless or impulsive decisions. The next thing I would like to talk about is how the music industry has shifted from, signing to a record label and having a built-in team. And now it's more or less all of the responsibility, all of the creativity and execution of marketing and promoting the artist is on the individual. And so, we're about to jump into Saturn and Aries, but Neptune and Aries just speaks about, again, the individual is the idol, and then Saturn is the responsibility of being the individual that is an idol. So just to reiterate, here are your risks: parasocial extremes, risky and impulsive decision making, and an identity crisis. Because if you are not strong with who you are, people will just walk all over you with that Neptune and Aries right now. And here's what to do. Strong sense of self is necessary, of course. Take the step forward, take a leap of faith to start building new skills as we start to establish this new structure in our life. And lastly, don't shy away from your dreams, you guys. Please pursue them. Neptune and Aries is not a denial of dreams. It's really okay, your dreams are out there. We acknowledge it. We see it, but it's on you to make them happen. And so just to do a quick recap of Pluto in Aquarius and Neptune in Aries. Pluto was in Aquarius for about 20 years, and Neptune is in Aries for about 14 years. And so all of the predictions that I just made are going to be long-standing. Of course, we may see these initial ingresses being like the big boom of these predictions. However, a lot of these things will take time to unfold, because if we're coming out of the old systems, Neptune and Pisces, where we did not realize we were even in fog, and now Pluto coming out of Capricorn, where it's like the power was with the hierarchy, with the systems, and now the power is being given to the people, and the idolization is now with the individuals, with ourselves. It's a lot of changes that will ring out over time, but it's just going to take time for all of this to come together, for us to fully see all of these changes happen, and for us to make those shifts accordingly. So don't start freaking out. Don't start rushing. Don't start, doomsday prepping. You have time. You truly do. It's just one day at a time. Now, let's officially shift into Saturn in Aries, which is, we have to build it like a business, for lack of better words, right? Okay, my indie musicians, this is where I think some of you guys are going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm over it. I'm done. I'm tapping out, waving the white flag. You guys, you guys, there's a silver lining. Saturn is in a zodiac sign for about 2 to 3 years. And Saturn first entered Aries around spring of 2025 and retrograded back into Pisces and then re entered Aries in mid February of 2026, where it will be there until I think like early 2028. Don't quote me on that specific transit, but it's going to be there for about 2, 3 years. And so this is now Saturn being the planet of responsibility, commitment, structure, hierarchy, but also its discipline, its limitations, its restrictions. Now that it's in the sign of Aries of the individual, which is again being impacted by Neptune, the idolization of the individual, you guys, this is where we now have to build it like a business. And this part excites me, but also kind of, I think, terrifies me as a person, because while we are primarily applying this knowledge to the music industry, this knowledge can really be applied to any other industry. We are having this unique conjunction with Saturn and Neptune right now. It went exact, I think, in was it February or March of this year? I can't quite remember. But this is where we can pursue our dreams and actually make them real. Now, I'm not saying if you're watching this video, let's say 5 years down the line and Saturn's in Taurus, that you missed the window. That's not what I'm saying at all. However, what I am saying is, given this time as I record this in April of 2026, people who start pursuing their dreams now really are building a foundation that will last for this, what I would say is this 20-year transit, give or take a couple of years, right? And so I almost encourage all of you, whether you are an artist or an industry exec or someone aspiring to get in the music industry, start building your business. I'm not saying go register for a trademark and go make the LLC. Of course, you're an artist, you should be doing that. But this is more so of figuring out, like, what are you actually going to do? What is your game plan for now, what I would call self-actualization? Because Saturn's coming and being like, okay, we see the dream, we see the vision. You kind of lack clarity around the vision, and maybe the vision's not fully fleshed out, but this is the time to actually self-actualize. However, with Saturn being responsibility and commitment and work, it is heavy. It is very tedious because it's such a significant amount of responsibility on the individual, on Aries, which again, fire sign for zodiac sign. We just want to move. We just want to go. We just want to leap into this new, brand new beginning that we're being given. But Saturn's being like, you thought you thought we are going to make that leap, but you have to prepare for everything that comes with it. And I like to think of this again as like the foundation. And so when we're pursuing our aspirations, I understand that these things can take time. Some people become overnight celebrities, most people do not. As someone who's been, as I mentioned earlier, a decade in the music industry, here I am still trying to figure out like exactly how to navigate all of this. I had to change the battery on this camera. So I think my angle's a little bit different now. So if I look a little different, if the angle's changing, if the audio's off, just bear with me. I'm learning. I'm not a professional videographer. I'm not a professional audio person. I'm doing my best, and it's an uphill battle. To be honest, just to go on a little bit of a side tangent for you guys, I have been saying throughout this episode continuously, and I'm going to cut out majority of them, that I do not want to do this, that this is just too much, that I'm so exhausted. It's 5:19 in the morning. And again, for those of you who know me, y'all know I'm extremely nocturnal. I am trying to get my sleeping cycle on track, but I was planning to be done recording this episode like no later than 4 in the morning. Now that it's 5 a.m. and I'm still maybe a little over halfway done, give or take, we'll find out. It's a lot, you guys. And there's a part of me that I think is getting stuck in like my perfectionist tendencies, where I'm just like, this is not coming together the way I wanted. I kind of just want to delete the episode. But I also understand that with Saturn and Neptune and Aries, the weight of the world is on the individual, especially when it comes to our dreams. But also, like, Neptune does blur the boundaries of Saturn's limitations a little bit because of those planets specifically. But then you add Aries. So it's kind of like know your limitations, push through the fog and just act. And so this is my perfectly imperfect episode that is going to go up, trusting in the fact that I will make another music and astrology episodes. Obviously, I'll be talking consistently about it in the Patreon. That is where I'm going to put a lot of my regular music and astrology predictions. So jonababy.com/Patreon is where you will find those. But sometimes we just got to do it, you guys. Sometimes we just have to bite the bullet and just go. And so that's what I'm doing with this episode. Because again, you guys, there's a part of me that just wants to delete this entirely and just save it for a different day where I have a lot less going on. But then I'm looking at my schedule like, girl, you have no time this week. We have another episode coming out next week and we just got to get moving. We just have to do this. And so I think this is actually a really good example of Saturn and Aries and how much I've been crashing out behind the scenes, because it's a lot for individuals. And, if whether you are a musician who's now wearing the hats of a manager, of an A&R, of a graphic designer, of a producer, of a videographer, of a marketer, or you're an industry exec who just got laid off at your label job and now you're still wanting to work in entertainment, but also now you have to start your own company or find your own clients. You can't just rely on the, consistent paycheck of a 9 to 5. If you are aspiring to the industry, you now have to figure out, one, how the industry works, and two, how to position yourself to be employed with no experience in the industry. It's a lot of work for everyone, you guys. Imagine being the music industry girl who has, a lot of music industry credentials, but then I tell people I'm also a professional astrologer and psychic and tarot reader. It's a lot. And we are all going through these changes together. And so while we may feel like we have the weight of the world on our shoulders, it is still important that we do these things right when we can. So I'm going to put up this episode in a perfectly imperfect way, but also my goal is still to improve the podcast. I'm not just going to wing it forever. It's just something that we have to take day by day. And Saturn being the timekeeper, it really is showing that time will reveal all. Saturn is very much teaching me the lesson of, I think, routine and consistency and having a game plan. I can't be recording these episodes at 5:30 in the morning because now it's looking like a girl's going to bed at maybe 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. That's not what I wanted, you guys. That's not really what I wanted. I was hoping to be in bed by 6 a.m., which I know is crazy to say, but that's just my schedule. The Pisces 6th house, Aries 6th house, it's who I am. But Saturn's coming here and being like, girl, this ain't going to fly any longer. You're done. You're over it. And I'm just like, okay. Sorry for the side tangent, you guys. It's a podcast, so it's fine. So shifting back to Saturn and Aries in the music industry, since we are building it like a business, I will say these last couple of years paired with the Saturn and Neptune and Pisces combo, and now Saturn and Neptune combo in Aries, this has been some of the toughest times to ever pursue a career in the music industry. We are still lacking clarity around systems, around structures, around who to trust, around who to work with. The music industry is largely unregulated. There is not really a lot of unions, and those that there are, people don't seriously take them super seriously. There's not a lot of organization of our collective power. We're kind of just doing things. And so the music industry tends to attract a lot of creepers, a lot of scammers, a lot of people who make empty promises. It's not the greatest industry to be in if you are trying to create something super long-term and concrete and stable. But I think that's the opportunity, again, based on the astrology, to then build your own foundation. I actually just had a conversation with a friend a couple days ago, and they were basically like, I don't know if I really trust working with many people in the industry. I've tried working with so many different people, and now I'm just going to focus on who I truly feel safe with. And I was just like, one, I wanted to give my friend a hug because that's a tough thing to realize that most of the industry, I say most, that's a generalization. A lot of the industry is not great, but there are some incredible people within it. And I don't want anyone to feel like that's going to deter them, because these planets are giving less of collaborate with everyone and anyone, and more so collaborate with those you trust based on the system that you build. And so I'm going to put all of these these predictions together at the end. This has been some of the hardest times to pursue a career in the music industry, or really to pursue a career in the arts in general. But this doesn't last forever. I would say, this initial upheaval of music industry changes is going to last, I would say, until Saturn is out of Aries. And then once it enters Taurus, it's more so about rebuilding our foundations with our values and our finances. But right now, the weight of the world is on the indie artists. And I have to call out the indie artists specifically because I want the music execs and the aspiring fans to hear this part. Indie artists, when you start building your foundation and you start recognizing yourself as like an actual business and less of I'm a musician and I'm trying to get signed and I'm waiting for my big break and I'm waiting to go viral. And you just are like, you know what? Maybe I have 1,000 followers on TikTok, on Instagram, and maybe like 200 monthly listeners. Nothing's going to stop me from building that foundation, because if I start building it now and then I do have that viral moment in a year or 2 years, at least people then can like fall in love with my music and go sign up to my Patreon or go donate to my GoFundMe, or, you know, buy my merch online. Like, that is the way that you need to start thinking, because if you go viral and you have nothing to direct people to, you just went viral for no reason. And I understand, if you're an artist and you go viral and you want your song to get a ton of streams, that's great. But also remember, Spotify specifically pays their artists less than a penny per stream. So, like, how viral are you going to go? You make about $5,000, probably less at this point, with 1 million streams on a song. That's 1 million streams is equivalent to $5,000, you guys. It's not sustainable. And so that's why I'm saying, artists, start shifting your perspective, start thinking like a business, because once you start establishing that foundation, you can also then hire us industry execs who are now freelancers, because all these labels are laying off people, you know, and you will meet some incredible people who know what they're doing. But if you don't have a foundation, it's really hard to do that. And I think that's a big struggle, I think, for a lot of people in this industry as well, is, artists, they think that hiring a manager is the key to all answers. And while a manager is super important, they're not necessarily always the one doing busy work. And that obviously depends on the manager, obviously depends on the expectations determined by the artist and the manager. But from what I would say, artist managers are now becoming labels. And if you're expecting an artist manager to operate like a label, then one, expect to pay a lot, but two, also expect that some managers don't have all label expertise. I'm blessed in my position to have a lot of knowledge on labels and management, but that's because I spent a decade learning both systems. A lot of people spent a decade in one system. And if you are an aspiring fan trying to get in the music industry, I highly recommend you explore as many different fields in the industry that interest you as much as you can. But we have to be practical, you guys. We have to manage our expectations, because, again, I'm thinking about that Neptune and Aries paired with this Saturn and Aries combo. And it's just like idolization of the individual, the weight of the world on the individual, but we may not see ourselves clearly regarding the weight that we have. And so we have to be very practical. We have to continue to remind ourselves, because unlike Saturn and Neptune and Pisces, where it's like, again, boundaryless, we're kind of just going with the flow. Aries is not going with the flow. They are moving, they are executing, they are implementing. And so we can lead to risky and impulsive decisions if we're not being very super smart and strategic about how we navigate these things. So, yes, to my indie artists, to my music industry execs and aspiring fans, like, it is just so important that we start viewing this as an actual business and less as I need that viral moment. I need that cosign. I need 1 million monthly listeners on Spotify. It doesn't matter anymore. The streaming has changed the game. Social media has changed the game. The playing field is more even, more equal than ever. However, the competition, the barrier to, I guess, success is higher than ever, because there are so many people pursuing the same dream. But I'm a firm believer that everyone can be successful and everyone can have a seat at the table. And if you can't sit at the table, you build your own fucking table, you guys. And that is building your own business, because now you get to choose who you work with. You get to choose your deadlines. You get to choose your schedule. But I understand it's a lot. It's the weight of the world on the individual, and resilience is key here. I would say it's less of a sprint and more so a marathon right now in the music business. So, to put this in more practical terms, I want you guys to focus on the very next step. I'm not asking about step 10. I'm not asking about your moonshot goals. I'm not even asking you about a year out. Let's focus on the next month and 3 months, like bare minimum. And for those of you who are like, oh my God, that's even too much for me to think about, the next week, the next day, because the key here with navigating all of this energy right now and mitigating the weight of the world on our shoulders is to start prioritizing and to start discerning. Because if we lack clarity as individuals in general around ourselves and our identity and the weight that we feel and the responsibility and the commitments that we're making, the best thing that we can do is be practical and really look at what's happening in front of us. What's the next step? What's the step after that? And then once we get those first 2 to 3 steps established, we'll start to find the momentum that is required by Aries. But it's always the most difficult thing to start. And so you want to just be very resilient, very disciplined in what you do. Just don't be impulsive, you guys. Don't make any risky decisions. Just focus on doing things right. So long term, down the line, your foundation is built in a way that is not going to make you second guess of, oh my God, instead of posting 100 TikToks and none of them ever going viral, none of them ever, you know, surpassing the 300 jail limit. I spent time making 30 TikToks and then I spent time making a Patreon and I spent time building up my email newsletter. Of course, marketing is so important, but a business does not just have marketing. They have a service. They have something to offer. And I know that's a really tough thing for artists right now because some artists just want to be the creative. They just want to put out the music. They just want to be the visionary. They just want to do the photo shoots. They just want to do the music videos. They don't want to do all the work and the labor. But right now, with everyone's a star, everyone's a famous, it's not just you, it's not just me, it's all of us together who are having to put in the work to pursue our dreams. And then keep in mind, you guys, this stems outside of music. I'm just giving you guys the cheat code through the lens of music industry. So make the moves. You don't need to start the merch line tomorrow. You don't need to start the Patreon tomorrow. You just really need to figure out what's your next step. What's the step after that? And then stop. I would say don't start planning more than 3 steps ahead because then you start getting into that Aries energy. You risk impulsive decisions. You risk a burnout, which is really key with Aries energy, especially now that Saturn's there. Burnout, big time. I'm only 4 episodes into season 2, 50 something episodes of season 2, and I'm already feeling burnt out, you guys. Well, partially it's because I've been having so much issues with my tech and not really knowing how to use it. But I'm having to find that balance and I haven't been sleeping truthfully. And so it's been a struggle. So I'm right there with you guys. Anyone who's just having a really hard time with, I think, dealing with the complexities of our world and the music industry and pursuing our dreams, I am sending you so much love because I'm not even a musician. I'm just someone who now has their own music industry adjacent business. And I'm feeling it, y'all. I am feeling it extremely. And I'm just sending you guys all so much love. And I believe in all of us. I believe in the beauty of our dreams. I've seen what following astrology has done for me. Clearly, hello. Hey, Gemini. I believe it can happen for you because it's happening for me. So, again, just to reiterate what you can do right now, you are a business owner, whether you're a musician, freelance industry exec, or an aspiring fan, you are a business owner. Secondly, build it right, then build on top of it. Now, let's talk about the last planetary shift, which is Uranus in Gemini. As I mentioned earlier, I am, as I record this, 2 days out from Uranus entering Gemini. We are at, Uranus is at 29 degrees of Taurus, as is Venus, which is really insane. I just feel like, you guys know anything about me, just know my entire chart is lit up right now. I feel like the universe is specifically coming for me right now. I'm like, okay, universe, I knew about all the outer planetary transits, but then when you start diving into the nitty gritty of the everyday transits with the personal planets like Mercury, Mars, the moon, the sun, I'm like, okay, why are you guys calling me out? Because that last new moon, the new moon in Aries, was at 27 degrees of Aries. I'm a 27 degree Libra rising. Now this like Uranus and Venus conjunction, I have Venus and Uranus squaring in my chart, but then it's moving into Gemini with Uranus as well. Venus going first and Uranus. I'm just like, I have that in my chart natally through a square, but also like Gemini of all zodiac signs, granted, that's just the way that's just the way the cookie crumbled. So Uranus and Gemini is about collaborations. Collaborations change everything. Uranus and Gemini is about collaborations. Collaborations change everything. While artists as individuals still can and will be very successful on their own, because of course we have, everything is in Aries right now with Saturn and Neptune, the big ones. Gemini is dualistic. It's the twins. It's multiple. Aquarius is a sign of the people. And so we have the sign of the people with the signs of the individual. And so how I interpret this is with Uranus being the planet of chaos, revolution, breakthrough, sudden light bulb moments. This is the viral moment, you guys. This is how we navigate virality. It is in the sign of Gemini, which tells me a lot of people, a lot of musicians are going to go viral, or even music industry execs and fans are going to find their breakthrough when they collaborate with others. This is not your breakthrough happens on your own. Yes, you can achieve your dreams. Idolization is on you as the individual. You are the one putting primarily majority of the work into your dreams, but the breakthrough comes when you work with others. Here are a few of my specific predictions with Uranus and Gemini. First and foremost, girl groups, boy bands, they are back, you guys. They are officially back. Expect so many more new groups to debut. I think about Cat's Eye and like that whole like K-pop hype system going on. You guys, it's just going to grow. It's just going to grow. It's going to get even more popular. There's going to be so many girl groups and boy bands in a matter of, I would say in a matter of days, actually. I'm thinking about the Pussycat Dolls who just like announced their comeback, which was very on brand for Jupiter and Cancer and Uranus and Gemini. Like I was just like, oh my God, the astrology is astrologying. But, expect your old favorite boy bands and your old favorite girl groups to get back together. And it doesn't even have to be specifically like gender specific. It can be any type of band, really. Collaboration is really going to be so popular right now, but also duos. We are going to see, two artists who are performing together and everyone loves them. We're going to be seeing a lot of people wanting just to collaborate with one another. And that is really how you have your breakthrough. And so if you are an indie artist and you're solo, find someone to collaborate with, whether it's a duet with another artist or you're collaborating with a producer because you produce your own music or you're collaborating with your songwriting. Find others who you resonate with because that is how you have your breakthrough. And sometimes those breakthroughs aren't like through a viral hit online. Sometimes those breakthroughs are going to lead you to a connection with another individual. And why I want to call that out specifically is because with Uranus and Gemini, and I guess with all of the planetary shifts, again, there is this lack of clarity, the sense of illusion around ourselves as individual. So if Jen is out here saying, do a duet with this artist and you're going to go viral. That's how you go viral. That's how you break through. You guys, be practical. Neptune is in Aries. We're going to almost idolize ourselves and idolize other people for who they are. And so unless you are putting in the work with Saturn and Aries, you're going to have a very difficult time going viral if you're not doing anything. Of course, some people really truly do get lucky. I have seen it. I've experienced it. We are in the industry where we are chasing our dreams. We have to be mindful. We have to be practical, of course. Delusion is a big thing. And I would say some of my favorite artists credit their success to being delusional. We can be delusional without being stupid. Something else that I predict with Uranus and Gemini is songwriters and producers are going to become mainstream famous. I think about Jack Antonoff, who has worked with Lorde, with Taylor Swift, with Sabrina Carpenter. You guys, Jack Antonoff, even like a Benny Blanco, you guys, we're going to start seeing more and more like songwriters and producers become mainstream. We're like curious about their worlds and the lives that they lived. And they're going to be showing up more at more award shows and accepting awards on stages. They might even start their own, artist career and put it out there. And we might become a fan of them. And what makes me say that is, Gemini is the sign of the intellect. It's in the third house, so it can deal with writing. And so with songwriters and with producers and just being very like hands, they can expect a lot of success. And so I would say if you are a songwriter, you are a producer, continue to do that. I would recommend, of course, collaborating with others. Don't just produce songs and keep them to yourself. Make sure you're sending them to your friends, finding artists to collaborate with. If you're a songwriter, don't just keep songwriting to yourself. Of course, have your passion, have your interest, to write your most personal thoughts and keep them to yourselves. But there is a beauty right now in collaborating with others and maybe letting them sing your songs or co-writing a song, however that resonates with you. Don't let me determine the exact specifics for you. Just know that like songwriters and producers will have their breakthrough. They truly will with this transit. And Uranus is in Gemini for about 7 years. So it's a slow burn, but it's also kind of a fast burn because Gemini is very fast. And so is Uranus. So it's like 7 years is a long time, but like in astrology, it's pretty fast for what we're going to be experiencing with this transit. I would also say there's going to be a lot of changes with songwriting, and probably also music publishing. I would say, expect some scandals with music publishing because Uranus can be that like revolution, that rebellion, and like randomness and out of nowhere. So for any like music publishers out there who are not operating with like integrity and authority, be mindful because Uranus will come and expose that. It'll be a double-edged sword in true Gemini fashion. This is not a slow burn with Taurus. This is a we see you and we're calling you out because Gemini is so communicative. And so I do think, there could be some systemic changes with publishing, but also like with songwriting in general, I can just see it becoming more popular where people are going to want to know the songwriters, where people are going to idolize songwriters, and maybe even there's more award shows or songwriting credits are delivered differently now. I actually think about Spotify. I think they just implemented like a songwriting thing where you can click on the credits and see who all the songwriters and producers are. That will continue being a thing. There is just a massive breakthrough with songwriting right now and producing. My next prediction for Uranus and Gemini is about genres. All the genres will be popular. And I kind of alluded to this in the Pluto Aquarius aspect of this episode. Uranus and Gemini is like breakthroughs and rebellion and revolution with genres in Gemini. And so when I say niche down, I still highly encourage that because the Gemini is multiple things. So pick a lane. If you are a rock artist, are you punk rock? Are you heavy metal? Are you pop rock? I don't even know. Like there's so many different genres of rock music, you guys. Pick a lane. And then once you have that lane, kind of identify who those key players are within that lane, because that will show you just how low the bar is right now. Well, I understand there's, thousands of artists who identify as punk rock, who are the actual leaders in punk rock, and what is the actual ceiling. I would say niche genres are only going to multiply. For every niche genre, there's maybe 5 to 10 power players in it, which again shows you the ceiling within that genre, but also shows you the unique opportunity. Because keep in mind, you guys, like some of the genres coming out in music right now are just so new. I think about artists like Slater and Cobra, Demi Lovato, one of my favorites, Michael Madrano. There's a lot, you guys. And people are kind of calling this like the LGBT genre, where it's this like hyper pop. Charlie XCX would fall under this as well. And people are like, oh my God, like when did West Hollywood get its own genre? I literally saw that on Twitter the other day and it made me laugh because it's true. People are like hearing different styles of music and recreating it, and that then becomes their own genre. I remember on TikTok last year, someone made this like what I called like girly pop electronic music, and she made a video and she was like, what kind of genre is this? And I think I put like something like that, like girly pop electronic music or bubblegum electronic music, something like that. And she was like, I think you just created a new genre. You guys, that's how we do it. That is how we do it. Again, the bar is low. The ceiling is also low, especially when you niche down. Now, if you say I'm a pop star and I make pop music, that is where you run into issues. You can't just be a pop artist. You can't just be a pop star out of nowhere. Of course, I understand there's artists like Sabrina Carpenter and Taylor Swift, But again, if you look at those type of examples, one, they've been doing this for majority of their life. Secondly, their come up was very different than where we were as a society versus where we are now. So some of these artists who are having, their breakthroughs after being in the industry for a decade, like Sabrina, like Zara Larson, like Chapel Roan, it is because, in my opinion, they've already put in the work. They already know what they had to do to get to where they are at now. And now that they are having this massive success, they know how to sustain it. But most importantly, it wasn't just like they went viral overnight and now we're like deer in headlights. Like they were prepared to some extent. Of course, no one can ever prepare you for mass virality, but the entertainment industry was just so different back then. I do want to go back to the genres because I do want to say this live on camera that one of my big predictions is that rock music is about to make a serious comeback, you guys. I think about when we had Neptune in Sagittarius, which was, I think, like the 70s and the 80s, like early 80s. And you guys, that was like peak rock and roll. We haven't had Neptune in a fire sign since then. I've been saying this for a couple of years now. You guys will have to check my other podcast episodes and my social media content. But I do think artists like Olivia Rodrigo, Machine Gun Kelly, Youngblood, Måneskin are really leading the forefront with rock music. Of course, there are other artists. There are so many rock artists, and I'm sure some people are going to like drag me for the artists I mentioned, which I don't know why, because they're all incredibly talented. But actually, I even think about Charlie XCX, who recently said she's shifting away from dance club music and is now going to make a rock album. We, have yet to hear a song from that album, but like rock music is going to come back. I think it's interesting how rock music coincides with like rebellions and revolutions in American history. And so I'm not surprised to see this type of transit come back given everything that's happening in the collective right now. But as a fan of rock music, I'm really, truly, genuinely excited. I've been waiting for this moment for a very long time. And so, see you guys in the mosh pit. I'll be on the balcony. I also predict that EDM music and DJs will also become very, very popular. I actually just saw Disco Lines last week, and he's from Colorado. He's from Boulder. And so it was really cool to see what I would say is Colorado's biggest EDM, biggest DJ ever. I'm not super well versed in like the EDM world, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But as far as I'm aware, no one's bigger in the EDM world in Colorado other than Disco Lines. And so it was so interesting because today it was just announced that he got nominated for, it was a VMA or an AMA for a social song with No Broke Boys with Tanisha. And I was just like, that's so crazy. Like, I love it. It's just awesome to see like that type of genre really starting to break through because as I'm sure many of you guys know, like genres have their ebbs and flows. Like I think about like the early twins like Skrillex and stuff like that, where it was like massive, 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 and then it kind of died down. And now it's like all these genres are kind of like existing and there's not really like a leading genre right now compared to like the early 2000s when when rap music was dominating, or the 80s when it was rock and roll, or maybe like the early 70s when it was more like Motown. And so, given that it's, 2026, what is the dominating genre? Pop music? Like it's so vague. And I think, we're just going to continue to niche down and that vagueness will always exist to some extent. But I do think rock and EDM music are just going to become super, super big. I actually would say for any of the industry people who are creeping on me and listening to this episode and wanting to know where to put their money, y'all just have no idea like how quality of information I just gave you guys. So don't overlook the rock or the EDM artists because they don't have a massive fan base and they're not going viral. Pay attention to those genres because they really are about to pop up and they're going to come back in honestly probably one of the most powerful ways that we've ever seen in music. And it's going to be a very drastic difference, but it's going to be a historical one. Something else I also want to call out with Uranus and Gemini is guerrilla marketing, aka we are on the ground, we are hanging up flyers in our local towns, we are going to local shows, we are playing local shows, we're attending local shows. We are really just establishing ourselves within our community. And so this could also pan out as like fan meetups, you know? This could be for more of the like the mainstream artists. They go on tour, they're having to do the VIP meet and greets. You know, if you are a smaller artist, this is maybe the fan meetup at the coffee shop. It's going to be hard, I think, for artists to truly justify. Sometimes, like, I think about like pricing right now because there's a lot of controversy and back and forth on like ticket pricing. And so I think like, you know, for the mainstream artists who do plan to charge an arm, leg, and a kidney, and their families as well, you're gonna have to justify that cost because Uranus and Gemini is also like that rebellion and revolution with the multiple people with their local community. But Gemini is a double-edged sword. So if you aren't operating in integrity, be prepared to call out because again, these outer planets are in fire and air, you guys. We are not in Earth, which is slow and steady wins the race. We're not in water, which can be fluid and passive. We're in fire, meaning hot, bold, on fire. Air, it's, you know, we can't see it, so it's just traveling. You guys, you guys. So, you know, we haven't talked too much in detail about marketing, and I'll get into like more specifics in just a moment, but guerrilla marketing, you guys, it's coming back. Go hang up those flyers. Do a fan meetup where you guys go hang flyers together. That's actually one of my pipe dreams to do with an artist. So if you do that and you take my idea, make sure you tag me or let me know, comment on this episode, because I do think that's going to be a powerful way to not only distribute your message and get some marketing done, it's a great way to connect with fans and build a connection. Because at this point in time, if you do not have a connection with your fans, it's going to be difficult to sustain your career long term because we are past the Taylor Swifts, we are past the Beyoncés. And it's more so about becoming a niche celebrity within your genre. So, just to reiterate some key points with Uranus and Gemini, collaborate with people that you trust. This is not a time for you to only be the star, to only focus in on yourself, to do all the work. Find others that you really truly resonate and connect with because when you help others and they help you, that's your breakthrough, my friend. That is the viral moment. That is the introduction to the Grammy award winning songwriter. Secondly, make sure you show up locally. Again, do the fan meetups, distribute the flyers, make sure that you're actually with people in person doing things, have the meet and greets. And lastly, don't be afraid to experiment and try different genres, explore different genres, niche down. You'll find that a lot of your success comes from finding a more specific audience rather than trying to appeal to the mainstream broad audience. If you made it this far, leave me the music note and a star emoji. I want to see who's made it this far into the episode. You can leave the emojis on any of my social media platforms, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Blue Sky, on YouTube. Just comment on whatever post I have up for this episode. I want to know that you guys have made it this far. If you're on Spotify, leave it in the episode comments. I just want to know who's kept up. Now, this part of the episode, I want to dive a little bit more into detail regarding specific areas of the music industry, because I know I was a little bit all over the place as we went through all the planets. However, I want to connect the dots for you guys so you truly understand what I am recommending, what my insights are in a very practical way that is categorized by the different various areas of the music industry. So, starting off, let's talk about marketing. And I'm also going to pair PR with this because that's a big elephant in the room. Now, many of you guys know PR is not the same. No one is reading blogs anymore. Magazines are basically shutting down. It's really hard to get big press outlets. And so I have to say it directly. To some extent, traditional PR, traditional media is dead. It has changed, and I honestly don't anticipate it ever going back to the previous system. PR is now trending on TikTok, collaborating with influencers, establishing relationship with music creators, such as myself, as well as brand associations. It's less about pitching to Rolling Stone and more so about what am I at? What is the conversation online? Who knows of me through these cosigns? Next, guerrilla marketing is back. This is getting involved in your local scene, flyering around your town, having meet and greets with your fans, connecting with your fans at maybe a fan meetup if you can't do like a VIP meet and greet or something like that. People want to connect with each other one on one. They want to feel like it's very personal, like they have a close connection to you. Additionally, social media is your marketing. It is the number one tool to get your music out there. Of course, I understand some people hate social media. Some people are like, okay, that's the obvious. Like, yeah, it is the obvious. And it's going to continue being the obvious because at this point in time, that is the primary way to market yourself because so many of like the magazines, the stereotypical ways of marketing a record, even like getting a song on radio, all of this has changed. Major labels aren't even investing into radio play unless there's already momentum. And when I say momentum, I mean like significant momentum. I've seen fans crash out about Addison Rae online that really none of her music got sent to radio. And yet look at her. She's performing on Coachella main stage. She's being nominated for a Grammy. Like so much is possible without traditional marketing techniques. And so it's really a matter of recognizing how the industry is ever evolving and allowing the opportunities that now pop up to be the way that you pursue your dreams, such as through social media. So while big mainstream press like going on Jimmy Kimmel or getting on the cover of Rolling Stone is still important and still very meaningful, it's less for finding new listeners and more so of establishing a legacy for yourself. It's almost like a vanity metric. I can't tell you, how many artists are willing to collaborate with new magazines because they are willing to pay for the cost of hair and wardrobe and obviously the photographer and the set design. And so they are using that type of relationship to then fuel their press images, to have their social media content. And if they do it consistently enough, of course, that's when you start reaching new fans. If you're on magazine 1, 2, 3, if you're doing YouTube interview 6, 5, 7, it's like 6, 5, 7. I went backwards. Oh my goodness. You guys can tell it's late. It's 6 in the morning now. So those things are really important, but unless you're like mainstream and having a super extremely viral moment where you're already reaching millions of people and millions of people are streaming you. And when I say millions, I don't even mean 1 million. I mean like multi-million. Someone that I think about is some of these like big electronic artists. They have like 10 million monthly listeners, yet no one knows who they are. Rolling Stone's not calling. Jimmy Kimmel isn't calling. And yet they have 10 million monthly listeners and people might know them from a couple of songs or know their name because it comes up on Spotify, but they're not like super into, I need to know everything and anything about that person. Even like Zara Larson, I know I mentioned her earlier in this episode, but she's had countless hits, right? But no one really started connecting the dots that she was the one behind the hits or even really cared that she was the one behind the hits until she started connecting with us as fans, leaning into this like branding revamp. And so again, you guys, big press, it's important, but it's not that important in the grand scheme of things. When you reach that benchmark, you'll know. Until then, don't worry about it. Next, fans are also your marketers. This goes back into Pluto and Aquarius and Uranus and Gemini. The power is with the people. And so when you give to your fans and you truly give to them and you spend sincere time with them, I'm not saying go hang out with them every single week. But hey, maybe you do like a weekly live stream on Discord or on Twitch or on TikTok, whatever that looks like for you, or you have a Patreon and you're in there. Your fans are going to appreciate that because when you're willing to invest into them, they're willing to invest into you. The casual listener isn't going to build a long-term sustainable career that allows you to pursue music for the rest of your life. Now, how does it apply to industry execs and to fans trying to get into the music industry? It's the same, you guys. invest into your own social media, invest into your own branding, invest into your own content, and start building it like a business. Get involved in your local scene, go to a local show, see what flyers are on the wall, reach out to those local bands, see who works at the local venues. When it comes to social media, start networking with your fellow music industry execs, start sliding into DMs. Of course, make sure you're providing value to them so you get value back. But it's really important that, those who are in the industry and those who are trying to figure out how to break through, we recognize that so much of the industry has changed, but marketing is still very important. And you're only going to be able to do marketing for an artist is if you actually make the effort to connect with them. And then when it comes to going viral, that's going to be through the collaborations, you guys, whether it's collaborating with another songwriters or doing a duet with another artist, you're going to find that most of your success is through other people. And sometimes that doesn't have to just mean through other artists. You may find that your breakthrough is connecting with this industry exec or connecting with your fans, which again should be your foundation in general. But if you connect with your fans enough, surely they're going to put people onto you. Now, let's talk a little bit more about live shows and touring. I already mentioned this earlier in the episode, but local shows are going to make a massive comeback. I do feel like people are going to start discovering new artists. I think about, Uranus and Gemini and then Saturn and Neptune, specifically Neptune and Aries. It's like the discovery of something brand new. It's the breakthrough of the artist. And so if you are an indie artist and you do have the opportunity to play locally, who cares if you're playing at the same coffee shop, once a month, or if you're basically hitting every single town in your state? Who cares? Go and do it. The only person that is holding yourself back from that is you, because the local community, they have no idea who you are. So if you are showing up at the same coffee shop, multiple times in a month, who cares, you guys? That's your story. That's a reflection of where you're at. And so we don't really need to shy away from that. I do think smaller shows with smaller audiences at smaller venues are going to see an increase in attendance. I see artists are probably going to want to size down and play smaller shows because it's not only is it more intimate, it's also more cost effective. And it's a great way just to have that close one-on-one relationship with your fans without not a lot of costs associated with it. Because I do think that is a big issue in music currently. And given all these planetary transits, it's like only so many artists can fill stadiums, only so many artists can do arenas. And even if they can film an arena, can they do that in multiple locations? That really is the question. Another prediction I have for live shows and touring is co-headlining tours. I actually saw two artists do this. That some of my favorite artists, the Struts and Barnes Courtney, they did this back in the fall of 2024. They basically rotated who was headlining every single night. And I thought this was a really interesting concept because not only did it bring both their fan bases together, it really allows it to be a proper joint tour where it's not just like, okay, I'm the opener, so I only really have to invest into so much. When you guys are co-headlining a tour and you guys are rotating who ends the show every single night, it brings in an additional level of an investment where you're not just, betting on yourself and hoping the opener connects with people. It's like, okay, we're actually a team and we are building this. And so I would recommend if you are an indie artist and you want to go on tour, find another band who's not going to open for you. Find another band who wants to co-headline with you, and that will help you guys mitigate the cost. That will help you travel further and, meet new people, explore new markets, and build your audience. Now, I already talked about this. However, I want to get into a little bit more detail. Fan experiences really are a non-negotiable for artists right now who go on tour, especially for the bigger mainstream ones. This is when you want to do the meet and greets. This is when you want to do the fan meetups. Fans are not only going to document this for their personal stuff, they're going to post it on socials. So, stopping to take that selfie with fans after the show, you want to do that because the fans are going to post it on their social media. And then, their audience, their followers are going to be like, who is that person? What song is this? And so it's like the cosign on top of the cosign. But we don't really care if A or B list artist is co-signing you. It's about the fans. It really is less about paying the feature fee and more so about, I would rather save the 30 grand to get this big artist on this song. And now I'm just going to put the 30 grand towards making VIP kits. which is actually a lot of money for that, but which is making VIP kits for my fans so we can have a closer connection, because that also builds long-term partnership. They're always going to remember you being the artist that they met at this show. So, in general, my friends, touring is very much a collab play right now. It's, finding the artist who wants to go on tour with you, but also connecting and collaborating with the fans who show up at the shows. And if you guys can tap into your local markets, even better. And I understand some artists are like, well, I live in LA and I moved to LA. Just tap into it, collaborate with other LA artists. So if you are an artist who, let's say, lives in LA or New York City and you're like, well, I don't know how that works out, just do it. That's your ego talking, my friend. Have the monthly meetups at Griffith Park, at the observatory, and take selfies with your fans. Like, it's going to be okay. Of course, if you are a massive mainstream artist, adjust as necessary. But I just don't see a lot of artists going on tour and being able to fully disconnect from their audience, because at that point, you're not really going to get your ROI, get your return on investment if you aren't interacting with your fan base in some close and intimate way. Now, let's talk about AI, because that is a really big topic in general, but especially for the music industry. You guys follow me on social, specifically my TikTok at Divinity Gen. I made an astrology prediction last year about how AI was basically going to really establish its footing in the arts and entertainment, and how we would see this first wave of AI artists come throughout, summer, fall, and winter of 2025 and spring of 2026. I think an AI song was just number 1 on iTunes or something like that, like a couple days ago. And so it's really insane, because this is just the beginning, you guys. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, okay, this is when we leave. This is when we mute her. This is when we end the episode. Now, I'm not saying that because I want you guys to believe in AI and just adapt because everyone's into it. I am saying that because this is what's reflected in the astrology, that AI is not going to go away. However, we do have the opportunity to regulate AI if we come together as a collective and actually start pursuing like legislation to create regulations around AI. Now, the music industry is already so heavily unregulated, so this is going to be an uphill battle for us in general, but I do believe we can make it happen. Now, when I say what is the AI like restrictions, that is for all of us to come together as individuals to figure out. I'm not going to say ban AI. I'm not going to say adapt to AI. What I'm going to say is we need to actually have a serious conversation about what we are going to do in terms of regulations. And now there aren't a lot of, I guess, organizations who are fully pursuing like music legislation and music law. There's far and few. There is one, and I'm totally blanking on their name. I'm so sorry. I feel so bad. But I know there's like a one organization. I think it's like, you know what? Let me just look it up for you guys on camera really fast, because this is really important to me. United Musicians and Allied Workers is one of the organizations that come to mind who really do advocate for various music industry legislation, as well as Music Cares, the Recording Academy, who do have like a proper team trying to pursue, I believe, some sort of music and AI legislation. And so those are the type of companies that we need to support and need to invest in. Because if these companies are organizing and we're not, supporting them and following them and backing them up, while also not organizing ourselves on our own. And so it's really important that we back these companies who are actively pursuing legislation regarding AI. Because if we don't, then what changes can we expect, my friends? Like, unless one of you guys are about to start like some sort of nonprofit, which is possible, but also very unlikely regarding AI and music, how are we going to expect to get this legislation in place if we aren't supporting those who are already trying to enact something, you know? And so there is this push and pull with AI and music right now. And so whether you are for AI, against AI, somewhere in the middle, wherever you fall on the spectrum, just make sure that you are backing your words with actions, that is super important. Now, there will be a lot of people who support AI in terms of fans. Yes, people will be fans of AI artists and AI music. However, what's going to separate real artists from AI is people's ability to be authentic, whereas the AI is AI generated, right? However, what is going to make them human? It's our imperfections, it's our stories. It's again, just operating like the unique individual that we are, and less on focus on being super polished and perfect and getting everything right. Because at this point in time, we do not have that luxury to try to get things right. Our luxury right now is showing up as individuals and letting people see the imperfections of us, because now that they know that we're real, they don't have to question of, am I supporting AI? Am I not? Your fans really just want to resonate. And so if the AI is storytelling better than you as a musician, you got to reevaluate, because people will always see through the bullshit. Like, we have to give fans credit now, especially in 2026. Fans are so much more smarter than they were in the past. They're not afraid to call out people on artists' team, different labels, different execs, different media outlets. If they have an opinion on something, they are going to tell you. And so if an AI is more authentic than you, and when I say authentic, I'm going to say maybe a better storyteller than you, that's probably the better wording of that, then that's your sign to really start getting your ducks in a row. When it comes to charting and cultural positioning, that's a big TBD. As of right now, I don't know if AI artists and songs will be allowed on the charts. We'll find out. I'm inclined to say no, but I also believe that that is just for traditional charts. I do believe there is going to be an AI charts where different AI artists, different AI songs will start trending or start charting. And people are going to become obsessed with those charts, and those charts are likely going to move fast because of how much AI, because of how quickly AI music is being made right now. Now, I say all of this not to discourage you guys, because again, Saturn and Neptune are in Aries. So Saturn, while it is a lot of responsibilities on the individual, and Neptune is the idolization of the individual or the lack of clarity around the individual, we can choose how to use this energy, especially on an individual level. And that is something that I really have studied deep into my astrology studies, which is, if we're aware of the energy, can we choose how to utilize it? And of course, some things are just out of our control. And I would say most things will continue to be out of our control. However, if you are able to mitigate the energy and you are interested in doing that, then please take everything I'm saying in this episode seriously, because it will help you get aligned with the energy. So just to reiterate, I'm going to separate this into two different things. If you are for AI, you need to find collaborators and partnerships who value AI the same way that you do. Do not try to collaborate with people who are against it. You are in the wrong lane. Like-minded, like-hearted go together. Don't go to people who are against it. That is going to be a big issue if you're collaborating with people, because this is such a controversial topic. Artists will likely be able to license their voice, license their creations to these AI companies. So know where you stand and build accordingly. If you are against AI, you need to start advocating for AI regulation now. And it's not just a social media post. It's not just posting on your Instagram story. It's actually going out and writing to your representatives, finding organizations who are investing into AI protection or AI laws, and making sure that you are make sure you're putting your money where your mouth is. Because if you're not, you're going to be basically a collateral damage to the system. But it's not even really collateral damage, because you're like consciously aware of it. Like, this is not a time to just sit and hope everything works out and trust that other musicians and other music industry people are on it. No. Again, Saturn is in Aries. If the responsibility is on the individual, even though the power is with the collective, we only get the power of the collective if we come together as different individuals and become. That sounds like very culty, which I do not mean it that way. So again, Pluto and Aquarius, the power is with the collective. Find those organizations and make sure you are properly supporting them. Now, let's shift the conversation to record labels and artist teams, because this is also another massive elephant in the room. As many of you know, artists want to own their masters now. They're not really wanting to sign the old deals of the past where a record label owns everything about them from their music to their image. Artists want more control over their career more now than ever. And so a lot of labels, especially like the mainstream, the major labels, are having to adjust their strategy completely because of these changes. Based on the astrology, I do predict that we are going to see a shift away from the major label system and more so artists consciously choosing teams at the indie side, but also as they create their own teams, such as with freelance marketers or freelance A&Rs or, freelance radio promoters. They're going to start partnering with freelancers more in that capacity. And not only because it's more cost effective, but also because they can retain ownership and control over their career, over their business. So labels are now becoming more about resource collaborations and less about this is my long-term home, this is my long-term investment. They can no longer gatekeep opportunities. And so the conversation is shifting from give me this opportunity to, as an artist, I need this from you as a label. So this is not a I'm against label. This is not a I'm for labels. This is a we're just really shifting how we work with them. And so if you are like an industry exec or someone trying to figure out how to join a record label, I encourage you to do so. But again, just be mindful of how much the industry is changing right now based on what artists really value at the time, which is creative control and ownership over their career. The traditional roles at a record label are going to start becoming more freelance because artists are just going to want to hire for either a project for a song. It's very unlikely that freelancers will get hired long term because at that point you just become a part of an artist's long term team, which is actually, now that I think about it, very possible because there are so many artists, especially indie artists, and those who are aspiring to get in the music industry. Please listen to this part specifically. This is your opportunity to connect with those bands. I actually just saw Louis Tomlinson did an interview about a month ago. And he was saying how he would love to work with a fan who just understood the game, basically. And I was like, Louis, I think you were summoning me because that's all me. And Louis, he has an established music team with, people who have been in the industry for a very long time, but he's wanting people who actually are in the world, resonate with the world, are and connect with the world. And so I see a lot of artists going to want to start hiring their fans to do their marketing, to run their fan accounts. And so I do want to call that out specifically as well. If you are trying to get in the music industry, try running a fan account. You may not be able to get a One Direction member to reply to your DM about running their official HQ account, but you may get, the small underground rock band who is getting a following. They might want you to run their HQ account. So, you got to pick and choose your battles. Just be discerning, be mindful, but don't let the obstacles deter you because who knows? Running that small band account may lead you to running Louis Tomlinson's HQ account. So again, indie artists, I do encourage you guys to handpick your team. I know it's a little bit difficult right now given the state of the industry, but I think with all of these massive layoffs at these major companies, we're going to start seeing more and more freelancers pop up. And so if anyone is looking for like a general, let's say, all-rounder, I feel like Cat's Eye, like Megan, that's what they were calling Megan, the all-rounder. Hi, I'm here. I would love to work with you. You guys can reach out to me at geminibaby.com and we can find a time to chat to see if there's any like alignment with that. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Now, as we start to dwindle down with this episode, I do want to talk about two more specific topics. The first one is about accountability in the music industry. So, as I had mentioned earlier in this episode, Pluto has moved away from Capricorn. The power that was with like the hierarchy with the system, it's now in the sign of the people. This means there is a massive, very clear transformation of how systems all over the world work. It's not just the music industry, you guys. And so, because it's not just Pluto, but it's also making aspects to Saturn and Neptune and Uranus and Gemini, Saturn and Neptune being the individual, Saturn, the accountability, Neptune, the unseen, Uranus, the breakthrough, Gemini, the communication, the intellect. I would say this is really the time of accountability for all of us. And so whether you're an artist, a exec, a fan trying to get in the music industry, you have to be accountable for your actions and for what you do, especially starting right now. And when I say accountability, I don't just mean like be accountable for your career. This is a reckoning for everyone. So if you were acting super crazy in your artist career 10 years ago and you're terrified that news is going to get out, it's likely going to get out. If you've been treating this intern really poorly and now suddenly they're like VP at this like music publishing company, that's your reckoning. Of course, we don't want to think too much about what other people think. We still want to operate on our own path, but this really is a time of accountability because the planets are saying, hey, powers with the people. Uranus is like exposing a lot of this. Saturn, Neptune is being like, you didn't see this clearly. And there's this karma, there's this responsibility for doing these things because it's the first zodiac sign. And it's like this reset of humanity, truly, with those type of energies of Saturn and Neptune. It really is giving like whatever decisions you make in your career, make sure that in 10 years time, when you reflect on them, that you are happy with the decisions you make. And of course, I say that lightly. I'm not talking about, oh, I wish I went with the blue over the purple merch item. I'm talking about big career decisions, about signing to a record label, about having a manager for long term, about, collaborating with a producer who has a sketchy history. Make sure that you are able to stand on business, Justin Bieber voice, in a way that is going to make you happy because these next 3 years will bring karmic consequences. And I'm not saying like if you act crazy, you're going to go to jail or you're never going to have a successful career. All I'm saying is you'll likely be exposed for it. And people are going to want to know the truth because of all the aspects these planets are making together. And so, anything operating under like oligopoly techniques, I'm looking at the major labels, those definitely will change. The major label system is going to change as we know it. As of right now, a lot of these major labels are basically acquiring all of the smaller indie companies and housing them under the parent company of the major labels. And that's kind of giving that Pluto Aquarius the forced conformity, but I don't think it's going to last very long because eventually if enough of us recognize our individual and collective power, there has to be a shift because we're going to push for those shifts. It doesn't have to be this way forever. And so we need to advocate as a group what changes we want to see. And so I would say the astrology is very much not giving we're operating from the top down. It's giving we're dismantling from the top down and rebuilding from the bottom on up. So again, just be mindful of how you navigate your music industry career and what you rely on, because sustainability is going to be hard for anyone, whether you're at the top or you're at the very bottom. It doesn't really matter. But if I had to be honest, this energy, specifically Pluto and Aquarius, does speak to the underdog winning. Pluto, again, that's the planet of power. Aquarius, that's the eccentric. So the underdogs will come out. It's just going to take some time. It will be a slow burn, but I do trust that anyone who has been acting, let's just say, in the general public's, not in the general public's interest, be prepared. Because of course, these energies can manifest on a individual level, but it's also very collective. That's where we'll see a lot of that become public because it impacts so many of us. Power is distributing in a way that's like actual proper mass distribution of knowledge. And the collective is claiming it, they truly are. And so as we dive deeper into the accountabilities, I do want to talk about like systems and owning your system. Because I'm talking about, the oligopolies, I'm talking about accountability. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we want to build this the right way. Do not let labels and social media platforms own all of your data. One of my biggest recommendations is to start building the email list, which is so cliche and so crazy. But at least when you build that email list, that is yours to keep. You know how to access it. You're not relying on a label who is, not going to share it with you ever. You're not relying on social media, which is obviously definitely not going to share it. You're creating your own system that if one TikTok or Instagram ever permanently went down or this major label closed down and now they're seizing all operations and you lose all your connections to your audience, to your fans, at least now you have a direct way to communicate with them and you own that data and it eliminates the third party within that relationship. So build what you own. whether it's the email list, the Patreon, the merch. Just start establishing your foundation, because Saturn and Aries, specifically over these next 2-ish years, is going to reward those who put in the work and who are able to push through. Again, be discerning, don't be impulsive, be mindful of burnout. But if you start establishing your foundation now, sky's the limit. Don't just think grow the social media platforms. Don't just think go viral. Really think about, how can I monetize this if I want this to be my career? Am I playing shows weekly? Am I building a Patreon? Am I crowdfunding? What am I pushing the merch? Like, what do you have that you can sell that will then create a reoccurring long-term customer? Because that's the thing about music, is it has its ebbs and flows. And so sustainability is super important. And so if you are not owning your data, if you're not owning your business, your momentum, your passion, your spark will start to diminish, because it's going to be this constant having to start over. Is the algorithm actually pushing my stuff? Whereas if I have the email list, I can just send everyone my stuff directly. I don't have to rely on hoping TikTok and Instagram's For You page actually shows my content. And sometimes some of these systems can also be like collaborating with people, like maybe finding a group of friends, a group of industry people who you really resonate with. I think about indie filmmakers and how, a lot of the acting and the film side of the industry is also going through it because of all this AI stuff going on right now. And so, if you are against AI, try to connect with other indie people in different fields of entertainment, such as filmmaking, such as, artists, whatever that looks like for you. Connect with those people, because they will help you with your career long term, but they also help you with your morals and with your values. Because as I had mentioned, while I do predict that the music industry is going to be hit really hard with AI artists and AI music, so is film and TV. And so if they're creating TV shows out of AI and putting that on Netflix, what's going to happen to the indie filmmakers, you guys? Again, the power is with the people. We need to come together as a collective. It's not, we can be very individualistic here in America, and Saturn and Neptune is going to almost like a lean into that individual energy by nature. However, Pluto and Uranus in social signs, it's a game changer, you guys. Uranus is the breakthrough. Pluto is the power. And so collaboration really can change things for many people. So just to reiterate this part of the episode, make sure when you start building your business, you build it right. Foundation is super important and should be a priority. Don't just, make 100 TikToks. Make sure you make 30 TikToks with somewhere for people to go that isn't just, here's my Spotify streaming link. Are you sending them to merch? Are you sending them to your email list? Like, what are you actually building and what are you actually owning? Because like I said, I do think a lot of these major labels, even some of these, social media platforms, they're going to go through changes. Anything that's basically like a massive corporation that is like borderline, that is like an oligopoly, prepare for those changes, because they can only get so far with that. And the universe is very much giving everyone their reckoning when it comes to collective and individual power. Now, let's put all of this together to end the episode, because I know this is a really long episode. We've kind of been talking in circles. It's been a lot to digest all at once, but it is really important. First and foremost, there are two big opportunities right now in music. Self-actualization, which is taking responsibility for your career, owning your data, and consciously choosing how you want to navigate it. Secondly, the power really is with the people, with the fans, with the artists as a group, with the execs as a group. It's less about me versus you and more so of me wants to work with you. I might have to clip that one for socials, right? The risk, forced conformity, being forced to follow one system, one person, one rule. Secondly, impulsive building and not having a strong, sturdy foundation. And the last risk is idolization will be constantly changing and very quickly with Aries, but also parasocialness. So just be mindful and be discerning. Start building your foundation now. You may want to move fast, but again, build it right, but don't stop moving. Lean into your community, your friends, your fans, your network. Find people who you really truly connect with and wouldn't mind working with. whether it's long-term or in a sharp project, pick and choose your team because there is so much talent in the world and so much opportunity that if you are just signing whatever record label deal or working with whatever collaborators just because they have a good ear for talent, you're going to be second guessing your choices when you realize their vision doesn't match yours or when you're putting in everything and they're only putting half of that. And of course, whoever's in that situation and maybe you just signed a record label yesterday, I don't know. Um, Take what I say with a grain of salt, but just have faith and trust in your intuition, but be very smart about how you navigate this next chapter. Because again, people really are truly willing to support you in your dreams. If they feel like they resonate with you and your story and you're very authentic, people are going to gravitate towards you, my friend. It's really just a matter of allowing yourself to show up with that kind of energy. Be ready. And then next, be ready for accountability. Don't make impulsive decisions. Make sure as you build your artist career that you understand what you are actually building and that you're doing it the right way because accountability is extreme right now, especially for those who are operating, you know, I don't want to go into ethics and morals and values and stuff like that, but if you are operating in as a person with questionable morals, then be prepared to be exposed for them. Will you have actual consequences? That's a TBD. But if you're okay with the general public knowing, there you go. Shout out TikTok for that. Everyone will forever be exposed. So make sure you act right because if not, you're probably going to go viral on TikTok. But I think that could be a good thing because we do need people to be accountable. We can't just be having crazy assholes running the industry, creepers behind the scenes. Make sure you're accountable and make sure you're operating in a way that makes you proud. Next, this really is a distribution of knowledge. Social media has changed the game that you could basically get any knowledge that you want for free, even music and astrology predictions. Hello, hint, hint with this podcast episode. But this is the water bearer energy of Aquarius. This is the distribution of knowledge. Use this knowledge, you guys. Don't just sit on it. Make sure you're actually applying it. There's that cliche saying, knowledge is only power when you apply it, but it's true. I know for me, when I was just learning about astrology, I didn't really become the astrologer that I am today until I started applying and living by the astrology. And those things take time. Again, we are going to have a cluster of planets in Aries for a hot minute, trining Uranus and Gemini, Pluto, Aquarius. So it is giving, we want to run. We don't care what's happening. We're ready for this transformation. We just want to have fun, be free, and pursue our dreams. As most of us do. But when you use this knowledge, you'll see that you are able to achieve your dreams. It really comes down to, are you putting in the effort? Next, look into collaborations, whether it's duets, making a rock band, making your own artist management team, hiring freelancers to do your marketing, whatever that looks like for you. Just make sure that you are discerning because again, with this Neptune and Aries, there can be deceptions around individuals and we may not always see them very clearly. So just make sure you guys have the same morals, the same values. Don't rush into anything. That is a big risk here with all of these Aries planets right now. We also have Mars in Aries. Just as a transit, I'm not going to get into that. It'll move out of Aries. It's about a 6-week thing. I think we're on like week 3 or week 4. I can't quite remember, but Aries just wants to move. And so just be mindful of any impulsive decisions. Take a risk, be bold, be a leader, but don't be reckless. I know this was a really long episode and I appreciate you guys keeping up with me, but this is where I see the music industry going. We are transitioning away from the traditional labels. We are transitioning away from not owning our careers, not owning our power. And now it's more or less about collaborating with others, finding our own opportunities, and taking responsibilities to pursue our dreams because our dreams are within reach. It's just a matter of putting in the effort to go after them. So I'm really excited, you guys. I know this, again, as I mentioned, this episode was so long. It was a lot longer than I wanted it to be. But hey, we did it. We're here. And so I want to shift into my song recommendations because, of course, you guys know that I have that. And so I'm pulling them up on my phone very quickly. The first song I would like to recommend is Superstitious by Stevie Wonder. First and foremost, Stevie Wonder, he is a massive legend. This is arguably his most popular song ever, and it's a banger. It is an incredible song, and I just felt like it was very fitting for this episode. I'm sure people are going to be a little bit superstitious of, is this real? Can we trust this information? You guys, when I become a proper like videographer and editor, I will include like astrology charts and stuff. I'm just not there yet. And like I said early in the episode, it's okay if we're not there yet. The key is to not stop moving, but just don't be impulsive. The impulsive thing was for me to pull up a chart and interpret it and then put it in the video and then it's not working and like I like crash out even more because suddenly I'm like just over it. It's too much. We're just focusing on the next 3 steps ahead of us. We're not focusing on we have to be perfect every single time. And so I think superstitious is a great way to kind of acknowledge that energy where it's like, is it going to work? Is it not? Superstitious, the writing's on the wall, TBD. But I can say from my own personal observations, my own personal experience, astrology is real and it works. And if you align with the energy, sky's the limit. It may just not manifest the way you always think. The second song I'd like to recommend, which is actually the title of this episode, is Everyone's a Star by 5 Seconds of Summer. You guys, I love 5 Seconds of Summer. I saw them open for One Direction back in 2013 at the Pepsi Center here in Denver, Colorado, which is now the Ball Arena. And it was so crazy. I'll have to save that story for a different day. But it's just been very incredible to see where their career has gone and the fact that they're all still together and that this last album that they just put out is, in my opinion, one of, if not the best album that they have ever made. You guys, every song is massive. Every song is a hit. It is very pop rock leaning, but it works so well for them. The branding is incredible. And then when I heard that song and I was thinking about this episode, I was just like, that has to be the title because it's true. Everyone's a star. Your coworkers are a star if you're a musician. And I didn't really dive too much into that on this episode, but yeah, your colleagues, your photographer, your manager, your A&R, they're famous too. It's not just you, buddy. It's not just you. The next song I would like to recommend is Yes God by Slater. Slater is having a massive moment right now, especially after her Coachella moment, which I am so excited for her. I've been a fan of Slater for a hot minute now. In fact, I recommended, I think, like 2 or 3 songs of her song on the podcast. I think back in 2024, I used Never Like Me, which is her song with DeVault, who I actually just met a couple months ago in January at his show here in Denver. I was a booth babe, and that was a wild show, different story for a different day. And so I just met Duvall, and then there was Tommy Genesis. I hope I'm saying that right. I probably wrong. And then Slater on that song. And that was a big song that I really loved in 2024. It's such an incredible song. But this new record that Slater just put out is just as incredible. It's really speaking to a lot of people on the mainstream side right now of the industry. And I'm just so excited for her because I've heard her story about, just being a struggling artist and wondering if she was going to continue doing this. And if after this record, if things didn't go well, she was going to quit music. And I'm just like, thank God she did not do that because look at where she's at now. And Coachella was just like a couple days ago. I can't imagine what it's going to look like in 6 months for her because it kind of seems like Coachella's been breaking a lot of people recently. We've had Chapel, we've had Sabrina. I'm like, who's next? And when I say breaking, I say that lightly because, again, a lot of us know that these are like 10-year breakthroughs. So, but yes, this song is amazing. This is my favorite from the new record. The next song I would like to recommend is Humiliation Ritual by Kyra Mashida. I hope I'm saying her name right. Again, I'm probably wrong, but this song speaks to me on such a deep level, you guys. And I feel like for any of us who kind of struggle with showing up and doing content and being wholeheartedly, authentically ourselves, me, I'm an 8th house Gemini stellium, Gemini sun there. It's a lot, you guys. It truly is a lot. And as an 8th houser, I like to think this is like my humiliation ritual where I kind of like post things online. No one really comments. I don't really get a lot of likes, even from like people who I think are my friends, which, your friends are not really your audience. And that's been a tough lesson for me to learn. And so I'm just like, okay, this is my humiliation ritual. And I'm trusting that in true 8th house fashion, that this is all going to come back, right? That I won't be in this humiliation ritual for much longer. But this song is iconic. It's so much fun. I want to make some like TikToks to it because of how much I enjoy this song and how much I resonate with it on a deep level. Yeah, I highly recommend you guys check out this one. The last song I would like to recommend is Not Us Anymore by Bradley Simpson. You guys know the Vamps. This is the same Bradley, same Bradley Simpson from the Vamps. This is his solo project. And while I haven't dived too much into Bradley's solo music, this song actually came up to me, I think on like a Discover Weekly, or it was like in a shuffle or something. I don't even know. But I was like obsessed. And when I first heard it, I was like, oh my God, the vocals on this are insane. And I was like, it sounds like Bradley Simpson. Like, I can recognize voices pretty easily. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, it is. And he just has some of the most incredible vocals. And while the lyrics may not be like super particularly fitting for this episode, there is one line that goes, now I don't want to come down from the stars. It took a lot to get up where we are. That's kind of how I feel. And for any, musician or industry exec or fan who's struggling to get into the industry, look at where you are at right now. Even if you haven't started pursuing your career in the music industry, look at where you are just to even come to the decision of this is what I want to pursue. This is what I want to do. That deserves a pat on the back in its own right, because we do need to be proud of ourselves for the small steps, because with all of this massive energetic change, all of these planetary shifts, we do need to be able to find a celebration and appreciation in the small things. And so I do like this song quite a lot. Again, This Is Not Us Anymore by Bradley Simpson. And so, my friends, those are my song recommendations for this episode. I am so stoked, so happy with the fact that we're actually ending this, to be honest. Like I said, it is now 7:01 a.m. I could crash out. I truly could crash out. I was hoping to be in bed no later than 8 a.m. I still want to get this episode out, I guess now later today. So I'm probably going to be up till at least maybe 10 a.m., possibly noon. Send your girl love, because this is Uranus and Venus at 29 degrees of Taurus. This is happening in my 8th house in whole sign, but also in Placidus as well. But I'm thinking about Uranus and Venus going to Gemini, and I'm like, I think that's it. Of course, the Saturn Neptune is messing with my whole like sleeping cycle routine. Like that's just another layer of it all. But I'm just like, I haven't been able to rest, you guys. I haven't been able to sleep these last couple of months, and it's been really hard for me. And it kind of feels like it's been building up to this weekend, I guess, for these next 2 weeks, because I still have some stuff going on. And I'm going to be flying to Los Angeles for basically almost all of May. And then I'll go from LA to Seattle. And so this is my last solo episode that I'm filming here in Colorado for the time being, for at least the next month. And I probably will not be doing another solo episode until I get into LA. We'll see. It's a big TBD. My schedule is very fluid right now. And so the next time you guys see me, I will probably be underneath a palm tree, maybe reading you guys tarot cards at the beach. TBD. How cool would that be? But I'm just super excited, you guys. This is my last big hurrah before, like I said, Uranus enters Gemini. This is my ending of the prelude of the brand new book. This is me about to start chapter 1. I've had to remind myself throughout the recording of this specific podcast episode that so many people were at Coachella last weekend who were like running on 3 hours of sleep and then spending like 10 hours at a music festival on such little of sleep, and then sleeping in the desert and using porta potties. And I'm like, girl, at least you're in your own home. You may be on 3 hours of sleep right now, but at least you're at home. You have a regular toilet you can use. You're not waiting in 3 hours for the shower. Just to be grateful, for the small things. But I'm just very honest with you guys about where I'm at. I'm excited and nervous to get this episode out. I am nervous about how it's going to come out, especially now that I'm going to be recording it on such little sleep. I've been awake for about 19 hours now. Maybe less, maybe 20. I think I woke up today around 11 a.m. because I had stuff to do. So if it's 7 a.m., 7, 8, 9, 10, I'm on 20 hours. I've been awake for 20 hours. So I'm going to see how much I can edit this before I pass out. Luckily, I did get ahead on the promo asset, so I just have to really plug in the timestamps and then it's good to go. But it's the actual editing of this episode that I'm nervous about, because I've been a little bit all over the place and, very anxious and tripping over my words, and we'll see. We'll see how this goes. I'm still going to get it out today, though. It's just probably going to come out during the exact conjunction later this evening. So send your girl love. Let's pull your guys' collective affirmation. Oh, wait, we already did that, right? We already did that. What am I thinking? It's the brain fog, you guys. I'm going to pull an affirmation for myself so you guys can kind of see where I'm at as a Gemini stellium before the the big move. I have two different affirmations here. Let's pull the slightly unhinged because I feel like that's the energy of Uranus and Gemini. So universe, this is for me. Give me an affirmation that I need to hear. That flew down. Let's just take it. Let's just take it. I am a force of nature and mild destruction is part of the process. Oh my goodness. Let me read it again. I am a force of nature and mild destruction is part of the process. How on the nose, I don't know if you guys can see that. How on the nose is that, you guys? Like, that's actually insane. That is so accurate. Mild destruction is part of the process. I'm in mild destruction right now, but I do trust I'm a force of nature. Hey. Okay, you guys, I'm going to shut up because this is a lot and I got to get to editing. But again, you guys can find me on socials. You can find my Patreon, my consultations, the workshop by going to geminibaby.com/links. You'll find everything there. Thank you guys so much for being here. Let me know what you guys think of the episode. Let me know where you're at in your career. Yeah, I'm super excited though. Welcome to chapter 1 of this brand new book. We made it. Hey, sending love. Bye.